I know why Hollywood tried to silence Katt Williams, and what I saw will haunt me forever. I wasn't supposed to see it. I didn't ask for it. But once you witness the darkness behind the curtain, you can never look away. Katt wasn't just another casualty. They tried to break him, erase him, and I saw how far they'll go to protect their secrets. I never should have stepped into that world. But once I did, there was no turning back. I wasn't supposed to talk about this, but here I am. I'm telling you. I know what I saw, and I can't unsee it. What happened to Katt Williams? It wasn't just a breakdown. It was something much darker. Something I was never meant to know. I wasn't some big Hollywood insider. I wasn't a star. I was just there. A small player in a game much bigger than me. I'd seen the glitz, the glamour, the celebrities who pretend to have it all. But Katt wasn't like them. He wasn't playing by their rules. He wasn't someone who was going to bow down and smile for the cameras. And that made him dangerous. He knew too much. And when you know too much, you become a threat. This was back in 2019. I remember it so clearly. Everything seemed normal on the outside. The parties, the shows, the flashing lights. The world I was moving through had all the usual trappings of success. People acted like it was a dream, but it felt more like a carefully curated nightmare. I was working behind the scenes just trying to keep my head above water, but I was starting to see cracks in the foundation. I was seeing how the pieces didn't quite fit. And then I got a chance to meet Katt. At first, I thought it would be just like any other meeting in Hollywood. Shaking hands, exchanging pleasantries, the kind of thing you do with any other celebrity. But something about Katt's eyes, they were different. There was an intensity in them, like he could see through me, like he knew things I wasn't supposed to know. Things that no one was supposed to know. I thought it was just the weight of his career or his personal struggles, but no, this was something far deeper, something darker. But what really got to me was when I walked into that building. The place looked like any other high-end mansion, gleaming, pristine, full of polished marble and expensive art. But it wasn't the opulence that made my skin crawl. It was the atmosphere. It felt off. The security guard, this massive guy with arms the size of tree trunks, didn't say a word when I walked in. He didn't even acknowledge me, just stood there, staring at the wall. I could have sworn his eyes weren't even looking at anything. His face was completely blank. And the weirdest part? He didn't have any eyes. No pupils, no irises, just these smooth, empty sockets. Like something had been scraped out. I don't know why, but I froze when I saw him. I wanted to ask if he was okay, but something told me I shouldn't. Maybe I wasn't supposed to see him at all. Maybe that was the point. But I kept walking. The dread in my chest was building, knotting tighter with every step. I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right, that I was crossing some invisible line that I was never meant to cross. But I told myself it was just nerves. Then I saw Katt. And everything I thought I knew about Hollywood, about the system, about everything I thought was normal, started to slip away. Katt wasn't just a comedian. He wasn't just an actor. He wasn't even just a person anymore. He was a pawn in something much bigger. And when I saw how people treated him, like he was disposable, like he was a problem to be solved, it made my stomach turn. No one in that room seemed to care about him. And that's when I realized I wasn't just witnessing Katt Williams' downfall. I was witnessing a cover-up, something dark, something buried beneath the surface, something I was about to find out just how deep it went. I wish I could say I left that night thinking it was all a misunderstanding, that it was just another strange night in Hollywood. But deep down, I knew something had changed. That meeting had opened a door. And once it was open, there was no going back. What happened next took things to a whole new level. I stepped inside, and for a moment, everything felt almost normal. Like any other Hollywood party, you know? The soft hum of conversations, glasses clinking, the faint scent of expensive cologne hanging in the air. People laughing, acting like they didn't have a care in the world. I was just another face in the crowd, trying to blend in. Katt's entourage was everywhere. People coming and going, actors, producers, managers, all that typical Hollywood stuff. But there was something different about this night. Something I couldn't quite place. I remember walking into the living room, glancing around at the sleek, expensive decor, marble floors that gleamed under the soft lighting. The walls were lined with black and white photographs of old Hollywood legends frozen in time. You'd think a place like this would feel inviting, right? But it didn't. It felt cold, empty, like the house itself was just a shell. Not a home, but a facade. And I swear, for a moment, I saw a shadow move across the corner of the room. Just a flicker, too quick to be anything concrete, but enough to make my pulse race. No one reacted. No one even seemed to notice. I brushed it off, telling myself it was nothing. Just my mind playing tricks on me. But deep down, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching me. Katt was at the center of it all, sitting in one of those oversized chairs, laughing with a few people around him. He had this energy about him, like he was untouchable, larger than life. He was charismatic, sure, but there was something in his eyes that made you pause, a kind of weariness, something no amount of fame or fortune could erase. He looked tired, like he'd seen too much, felt too much. I tried to focus on the conversation happening around him, but the more I watched him, the more I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. It wasn't just his tiredness, it was the way the people around him acted. They were watching their words, constantly glancing over their shoulders, like they were walking on eggshells, afraid to say the wrong thing. I wanted to ask Katt if he was okay, but something told me not to. Instead, I kept trying to ignore the creeping sensation rising in my chest, telling myself to play it cool, to just enjoy the night like everyone else. But then it happened. I was standing near the window, staring out at the city lights, trying to focus on anything other than the growing unease. That's when I felt it. Someone standing just behind me. Too close. Not enough to brush against me, but close enough to make my skin prickle. I didn't need to turn around to know it was Katt. He wasn't looking at me. He was looking at the view, his back to me. But I could feel his presence, heavy, like the air shifted with him in it. For a long moment, there was silence. Then, in that voice of his, low, almost too calm, like it had seen too much, he said, "You don't belong here. They'll make sure you don't." I froze. I didn't know what to say. It felt like my throat had closed up. I let out a nervous laugh, thinking maybe he was just messing with me, but I could tell by the way his gaze never wavered from the horizon that he wasn't joking. The intensity in his voice made my heart race. I'd heard Katt say things like that before. Cryptic, almost prophetic. And I'd brushed it off. Thought it was part of his persona. Something to keep people guessing. But now, standing there in that room, with the weight of his words sinking in, I started to realize Katt knew. He knew exactly what was happening. He wasn't just talking about the entertainment business. He was talking about everything. And that's when I started to wonder, what was he really trying to tell me? Was he warning me, or was it something more? Was he trying to make me see something that, until then, I was too blind to notice? The pieces didn't add up, and the more I thought about it, the more everything started to unravel. And that's when everything started to unravel. There was a moment just after Katt said those words when I tried to brush off the growing unease. I told myself it was all in my head. Maybe I was just new to this whole world. Maybe the pressure of Hollywood was getting to me. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. The vibe in the room started to shift, like the air itself had thickened. People were acting different. Normally, there's that smooth, effortless charisma in these Hollywood spaces, right? The kind of charm that makes you feel like everyone's part of the same exclusive club. But here, it felt like everyone was on edge. I turned to glance around the room, trying to get a read on the situation, when I saw it. One of the guests, a man in a crisp suit, tall and slick, was looking at me, but not in a normal way. It was a look that cut through me like a knife, cold, almost like I was an intruder. It wasn't just his eyes. It was the way he tilted his head, like he was trying to decide whether I was a threat or not. But the strangest part, after that moment, he didn't look at me again. He just turned away. And that alone sent a chill down my spine. Why did he look at me like that? I decided to push it out of my mind, to focus on what was in front of me. But then, I saw the door. It was on the far end of the hallway. Out of place, a door that didn't seem to belong. It was locked, and there was no reason for it to be locked. Everyone was milling around, enjoying the night, but there was this locked door in the middle of a lavish house, tucked away behind the decor like it didn't even matter. Curiosity nagged at me. I wanted to know what was behind it. But before I could get any closer, one of the staff members, this woman in a black dress, perfectly composed, came rushing toward me. She grabbed my arm, her grip tighter than I expected. "You shouldn't be near that door," she whispered, so quickly that I almost didn't hear it. "It's not for you." Her voice trembled, but she quickly masked it, flashing a cold smile before walking away like nothing happened. I didn't know what to make of it. Why was the door locked? What was she really trying to warn me about? Katt was still sitting in his chair, watching it all unfold. But his face, it wasn't the same as before. His eyes were distant, unfocused. He wasn't engaged in the conversation around him. It was as if his mind was miles away, trapped in a place I couldn't reach. And that's when I started to realize it wasn't just the people around him who were acting strange. Katt was too. But that was just the beginning. It was that night, as the hours slipped by, when I felt it, the shift. Up until then, I had tried to convince myself that maybe I was just overthinking things. Maybe I was out of my depth, surrounded by people who lived and breathed Hollywood. But I couldn't ignore it anymore. The air felt heavy, thick with something I couldn't name. And Katt, he wasn't just acting off. He was slipping away. I remember standing near the bar, trying to blend into the background when it happened. Katt stood up from his chair, slowly, as if moving through thick fog. His face was pale, his eyes dark circles beneath them. He moved like someone who wasn't entirely sure if they were awake or dreaming. The laughter around me dimmed as people glanced at him, their smiles turning into nervous glances. I didn't know what to do, so I just watched. Then, out of nowhere, the lights flickered just for a second, but it was enough to make everyone pause. Everyone stopped talking, their eyes flickering toward the overhead lights. There was an almost imperceptible hum in the air, like something was charging up, building. And then, a sound. A low, almost inaudible whisper. It wasn't coming from anyone in the room. It was more like a vibration, an echo that seemed to crawl up my spine. I turned to look at Katt. His lips were moving, but he wasn't speaking to anyone. He was whispering something under his breath, his voice barely a murmur. But when I leaned in, just to catch the words, I realized he wasn't saying anything I could understand. It was like some language, an ancient guttural sound that didn't belong in this world. The room went silent. The only sound was the heavy beat of my own heart, pounding in my ears. I saw the fear in the eyes of the people around him, but no one dared to make a move. They were all frozen, as if waiting for something to happen. Then it happened. Without warning, Katt's eyes shot wide open. He wasn't looking at anyone. He was looking through them, like he was seeing something that no one else could. His gaze locked onto something or someone in the far corner of the room. But there was nothing there. The hairs on the back of my neck stood up. I didn't want to look in that direction, but I couldn't stop myself. And when I did, I saw it. Just for a moment, a flicker of movement in the shadows, something that didn't belong. I turned back to Katt. His body trembled, his breath shallow. And then, with a voice that was almost like a growl, he said, "They're here. They're coming for all of us." That was the moment. Everything shifted. Everything I thought I knew about this world was wrong. Then came the real shock. I can still hear it. The silence after Katt spoke those words. The way his voice shook as he said, "They're coming for all of us." I couldn't make sense of it, but the way he said it, the way his whole body convulsed, like something was ripping through him, left me paralyzed with fear. I thought maybe he was having a breakdown. Maybe he was just exhausted from the pressure, from everything Hollywood had thrown at him. But when I looked around at the people in the room, his closest friends, his team, they weren't looking at him like he was crazy. They were looking at him like they were scared. That's when I realized I wasn't just witnessing Katt Williams' unraveling. I was witnessing the moment when something much bigger, much darker, was about to consume him. I tried to tell myself it was all in my head, that I was being paranoid, but then it happened. Out of nowhere, the temperature dropped. You could feel it, the sudden chill that seemed to cut through the air like ice. I watched as Katt's breath came out in visible clouds. The people around him, everyone, were shivering, but no one said a word. It wasn't normal. The temperature didn't just drop, it felt wrong, like something was invading the space itself. Then, without warning, the lights flickered again. But this time, it wasn't just the lights. The walls, they started to close in. I know it sounds crazy, but that's how it felt. The walls of the room seemed to bend inward, the edges of the room warping, like I was trapped in some kind of twisted illusion. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest, but the air, it didn't feel right. It felt thick, like it was pressing down on me. And then came the sound. At first, I thought it was just the hum of the building, maybe the air conditioning acting up. But it wasn't that. It was something deeper, something ancient, a low, droning hum that filled the room and vibrated in my bones. It was the sound of something waking up, something that had been dormant for far too long. I looked at Katt again, and this time his eyes weren't just distant. They were empty. It wasn't just a look. It was like the light in his eyes was gone. Like it was gone, and only something else remained. I could feel it in my gut, deep down. That wasn't Katt Williams standing there.
His lips moved again. This time, it was clear. He was saying something, but it wasn't English. It wasn't even a language I recognized. It was something guttural, something that vibrated through the room and made the air feel alive, electric. The sound was all around me now, like it was coming from inside my head, but it was louder than anything I'd ever heard.
I wanted to run. I wanted to scream, to get out of there, but I couldn't move. I was paralyzed, staring at him, at the thing that wasn't Katt anymore. And then it stopped. Just like that. The room went back to normal. The lights were steady, the temperature warm again, and the hum gone. But the damage was done. I couldn't shake what I had seen, what I had felt. Katt blinked like nothing had happened. He looked around the room, confused, and then turned to me. His face was suddenly calm again, but there was something in his eyes, something that wasn't human. And that's when everything changed. I don't even remember how I left the room. 1 minute, I was standing there, frozen, watching Katt, no, whatever he was now. And the next, I was outside, standing in the cold, gasping for air like I hadn't been able to breathe for hours. My hands were shaking, my body numb. I could still feel the hum, the pressure in the air, like it was still inside me, pressing against my chest. I should have run. The second I saw Katt, whatever that was, I should have turned and bolted. I should have screamed, told someone, anyone. But I didn't. I just stood there, staring, watching as the world I thought I knew started to crack. But the fear, the deep, gut-wrenching terror, kept me frozen. It's hard to explain. When you see something that unnatural, that wrong, your body doesn't know how to react. It's like your mind tells you to run, but your body refuses to listen. You can't escape it no matter how badly you want to. You don't just leave, you're trapped, mentally, physically. The weight of it all holds you there, like some invisible force making sure you don't look away. I remember stumbling out of that house, my heart pounding, my head spinning. I could feel the adrenaline coursing through me, but it didn't help the overwhelming nausea that rose in my stomach. I couldn't make sense of what I had seen, and part of me didn't want to. But the other part, the part that wouldn't stop questioning, it was telling me I needed answers. I couldn't just walk away. But when I reached the front gate, that's when I felt it. A hand on my shoulder, cold as ice. I spun around, my heart leaping into my throat. It was him. The man from earlier. The one who had stared at me like I was something to be judged. His eyes still weren't human. There was no warmth, no life behind them, just the emptiness of someone who knew something you didn't. He was standing too close now, a little too calm. And his smile, God, that smile, it was stretched unnaturally wide, almost as if his face was pulling itself too thin, straining against the muscles. "You don't want to know what's really going on here," he whispered, his voice low, gravelly, like it had been dragged across 1,000 broken bones. "You know too much. And people like you, they don't get to walk away." My skin crawled. I tried to push past him to get away, but he gripped my arm tighter, pulling me back with a strength that shouldn't have been possible. I felt the coldness seep into my skin where his fingers touched. It burned. "No one walks away from this, not after what you saw," he said, his voice never rising above a whisper, but each word drilled into my skull. "You don't understand the game you're playing. They'll come for you too." His eyes, they were cold, lifeless, and it wasn't just a look. It was nothing, just empty sockets staring through me, not seeing anything, just watching. It felt like he wasn't even human, like he was just a vessel for someone else's dark, twisted will. I could barely breathe. The world around me was spinning, but I was locked in place. His words weren't a warning. They were a promise, a threat I couldn't escape. And that was when the true horror hit me. It wasn't just Katt. It wasn't just the darkness inside that house. It wasn't even the things I saw and felt that night. Number. It was everything. The people, the system, the way it all worked to keep this world locked up, to bury the truth, to make sure anyone who got too close disappeared. I had been a part of something now, something I couldn't untangle myself from. I had seen the machine from the inside, and once you see that, you can't go back. You can't unsee it. You're part of it, forever. As I managed to escape his grip and run to my car, the weight of it all sank in. I could feel the eyes of the house on me, even as I pulled away. I couldn't shake the feeling that they were watching me, that they always would. It felt like I was being followed, like there was someone or something on my tail. I still heard Katt's voice in my head, low and haunting, like it was echoing from somewhere deep within the walls. They're coming for all of us. But this wasn't just a warning anymore. This was a fact, a truth I couldn't escape. And I didn't know how much longer I had before they'd come for me, too. I tried to tell myself I was being paranoid, that I was just shaken up by what I had seen. But deep down, I knew. I knew what would happen next. I had crossed the line, and I wasn't going to be left alone. But what happened next took things to a whole new level. I shouldn't have gone back. I shouldn't have stayed. Now I can feel them closing in, watching me, always watching. Every shadow feels like it's hiding something. Every sound sends a chill through me, like they're already here, waiting, patient. I've seen the darkness behind the curtain, and it doesn't forget. It never forgets. And me? I don't think I'll ever be able to shake it. They're in my mind now, scratching at the back of my thoughts, lingering in the corners of my vision. The worst part? I know they're coming for me soon. I don't know how or when, but I can feel it. They always do. No one gets out once they've seen what I've seen. And no matter how fast I run, how far I go, I'll never be able to escape it. They won't let me. I've already crossed the line, and now there's no turning back.